Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the GreggHoush Show.
We did it!
Yay!
Another week.
What did we do? Another week.
We survived
okay.
another week of the Trump shit show, of the fuck show, actually, that we live in.
And yet we don't have an explicit tag. And so I am
trying to get us
here
there, guys.
with the wonderful Kayla.
That's me!
And Mac, as
the
always.
Mac Daddy! It's the return of the Mac! He's Mac to the future! He's the Mac-tastic! He's Mac! I ran out of steam,
She's
guys.
losing it there.
One of these days she's going to get bored doing it.
Behind.
I know. I had a whole list that I left it in the other room, guys.
And Anna is joining us tonight instead of Derek there.
Oh, no, come on.
Anna, banana. No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
I will throw shit.
Yeah, he just kind of takes it, but
I know.
like
That's why I like Mac.
I've got my shoes off already. This is not going to be hard.
Oh shit! I mean,
all right.
Did you wear your heels too? Oh god.
Oh yeah, you're in trouble.
Ouch. So this
we'll cut
is
it out for you.
This has been, as always, another adventurous week here in America and for really the entire world this
we
time.
actually
with
literally
Trump
have
at
the world
UN.
here. Yeah, Unga is what they like to call it.
Indeed. So let's just start right out of the gate with the Emmys and good old Stephen Colbert deciding that it was a smart move to bring Sean Spicer on.
Well, you know, sometimes when people, have careers, they like to. Sometimes they'll make dramatic switches, and like a lot of times, people who lie for a living, all of a sudden become celebrities and think that Hollywood will embrace them if they like quote unquote acknowledge the lie. Oh wait, that doesn't happen. That's not a fucking thing.
No. What we've ended up here is the Emmys gave Spicer a stage at which to kind of normalize in some kind of humorous way, they believed, anyways.
They basically were saying
what he was doing.
You're a good guy now, and you're part of the club.
Or at least, like, it's all a game and the sides don't matter.
Yeah, like lies don't matter, facts don't matter. As long as you can say it with a smile.
This is the guy who said Hitler didn't use chemical weapons.
And the Holocaust centers.
And yeah, I mean, it's the things this man said for a living for a period there. Are horrendous.
When I was
you can't
watching
normalize
the Emmys, I can't remember. I might have chuckled a little bit when I saw him.
Oh, it was funny.
Oh, I laughed. I laughed.
But then I saw Melissa McCarthy's face, right? Because they like obviously panned right to her, and then I saw how like her face kind of said it all. And then the next day when everyone's kind of like a lot of the journalists, and I was listening to journalists being like, "What the fuck? Like this guy has been literally harassing us for months for doing our jobs, and all of a sudden now he's cool." And then I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, this would have been funnier and like actually a funny joke if you had Melissa McCarthy. Like, why? I don't understand why they felt, or because like Stephen Colbert apparently invited him on. I don't know why he felt.
I think he wanted to do something kind of like, when he went on and did the White House Correspondents' Dinner and wanted to just like make fun of that person to their face. And I feel like
he did actually try and make fun of him up there.
I just feel like he kind of missed the bigger picture. He was very focused on the comedy and personal aspects and didn't think like, what kind of message does this send to society?
But I also think he kind of wanted to embarrass him too. Like,
Like
I definitely think he
Which
wanted.
I don't
have
think
done that
he
without.
did. I mean, if you see any of the pictures from backstage afterward, everyone who was there, well, not everyone, but most of them end up going to the governor's ball. It's this event that happens after the Emmys, right?
Yeah.
And
it's invite only, the cream of the crop go.
And one of the strangest things to see is when they're all going to leave and they're all going basically back down the red carpet the other way. All the paparazzi are like just mauling Spicer. They've surrounded him. They're yelling at him.
Like he was hamming it up too.
But the paparazzi are mauling him while people like Kevin Spacey and whatnot walk by, and not even a camera turns to take pictures of the actual actors and actresses who were there. Like they're all just focused on Spicer.
Yeah.
And the issue for me is that they gave him that. And he did not earn it. He did not deserve it. What he earned was going away Just fade into the back, and then when all the charges come down for all the various collusion, get hit with something.
Only occasionally be remembered in like some obscure Weekend Update joke on Saturday Night Live 10 years from now when they're bringing up obscure political figures.
Or like when you're like doing like ethics in a college course,
right.
like his face will be under the definition of liar.
Yeah.
One of the weird things about Colbert being the one who picked him to go on the Emmys is the week before he went on Jimmy Kimmel and he said, about Spicer being on Kimmel the night before, I don't necessarily feel sorry for him because he's not repentant for anything he's done. And you can't forgive somebody who doesn't feel sorry. I'm probably getting the exact wording wrong, but that's what he said. And then, he brings him on the Emmys. So
yeah. And like,
I think it was just for shock value because no one saw that coming.
Yeah. I think it was shock value. I also think Colbert wanted to hang him out to dry and make fun of him publicly, except the problem was Sean Spicer thought he was their friend. Yeah, like they're friends now. He gets the joke. It's like, no, you're the joke because you're a liar. And
but he's kind of immune to that because he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And also doesn't care.
Right.
I mean, you can just see it on his face. Like, I did it.
I mean, look at what job he took in the first place.
I know, right?
Obviously didn't care.
And like he took the job after he had told everyone in the Republican Party how much he hated Donald Trump.
I mean, who that's working for Donald Trump at this point hasn't done that at some point, though?
Omarosa.
Ah, look at you.
But I mean,
the fact that you had that prepared means you knew there was only one person in the entire administration.
It means I watched Sam B last night, and they did a whole thing about Omarosa and how terrible she is, and how her and Trump are meant for each other.
But seriously, like half of the people that work for Trump did that at some point before working for him, just going out and outright just shit talking him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing I could see from this is that after the Emmys thing, you've apparently like no media, like news media station or like company is offering him any type of paid punditship.
Yeah, he's not
pretty
offering
much
anything.
Expressly
Fox
said
apparently,
they're not.
yeah, apparently Fox.
Told him no.
Yeah, is saying no to you. Like Fox loves liars.
Not only that, but I think it was someone from NBC Universal, maybe. I'm not sure 100% which network it was, but they actually gave a comment about why they weren't. And they were like, yeah, we don't feel he has any credibility.
Yeah. Like I think
literally that was the reason.
Oh yeah, like they all denied him. So I guess that's the only good thing. Because the other thing too, it's like he isn't repentant and he's not saying anything. And like
no, but now he's going to do the talking tour and get paid, $20,000-$30,000 to show up at events. If people
hire him, I mean,
they have.
They do.
Yeah, they already have. He's already done a few.
Yeah, but
it's disgusting.
How many Breitbart speaking events can he really do?
There are a surprising
really want to know
number.
the answer to that?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Ask Harvard and ask the young Republicans there.
Yeah.
You mean the Koch network?
Yes.
As a matter of fact.
So now that we're done talking shit about Sean Spicer, the lying liar that lies, let's move on to Experian. Everyone will remember, of course, Equifax and the millions and millions and hundreds of millions of records that are now out there that are all yours.
Well,
and now everyone else's too.
And the 400,000 UK records that we now know, and slowly we'll learn more.
Well, here's the other thing too. CNN, because I watch CNN a lot at work just as a backdrop, because it's like I tried doing MSNBC, but it breaks up, buffers too much. But they seem to have forgotten about it already. So,
well, there's an earthquake and a hurricane, an earthquake and a hurricane. So.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things. The world is falling apart, but it's this is still a huge thing. We're still finding out information about it, but it just seems like this is a big news story that should be focusing still.
So we've got new news now, and one of the there's these three big ones. There's TransUnion, there's Experian, and there's Equifax, and they are the big credit reporting agencies.
Technically a fourth, but no one even cares.
Yeah, they are.
BeingCreditReport.com is not a
no. There's
There's
actually a fourth one. I don't remember the name of it, but they're not even widely used in the US.
Here we are with Experian, right? And they, of course, like the other two, have a method in place for you to freeze your credit, so nothing bad will happen or enter on it, and so people can't do bad things with your credit and all that other fun stuff. And you do it with a PIN. And this PIN is protected by a lot of your personal information. So they have a page on their website where you can go and retrieve that PIN if you, of course, have forgotten that PIN. And you can take that and actually reset everything and turn your credit back on, unfreeze it.
So, if you were going to pick a number for your PIN, what would you pick?
I would definitely not say that on here.
Can you speak slowly so I can write them down?
So at Experian, they have a page where you can go and get your PIN and then unlock your credit. And so you've unfrozen it and all the credit stuff can happen and your ID can be stolen again and all kinds of other fun things. And what's, both hilarious and sad here is that the page only asks for information that is in the Equifax data that was stolen on the first page.
Yes.
And then you get to the second page, and about half of that information is probably in your Equifax data, and the other half is unbelievably easily Googleable.
Yeah, you can just take a random person that you had the other information on and Google them and get the other bits.
So if you have the Equifax data, unfreezing someone's credit is, a 5-minute job because you have their data and you can go get this PIN.
Do we know if anyone bought the millions of identities off of the dark web yet?
I didn't actually look if
I
anyone
didn't
put any
check to see
Bitcoin
if
into
they'd
that
had any
Bitcoin
bids.
address. We should check on that.
Yeah, I want to see if any bidders, anyone took it up.
But so the Experian people have done a great job protecting your data.
The Berkeley student, right? They're gone. Right, whoever the CEO was, she was a music someone.
Yeah. The head of information security and the head of security, they're both gone.
Yeah, they stepped down. I think last Friday.
Yeah.
After they were I guess we don't know how to do our jobs. Weird.
Yeah. So there's Experian for you. So
they're not
keep
experienced.
checking your stuff there, because even if you lock it, Experian will allow the hackers to unlock it in about 5 minutes. And then let's move right on to...
Also, a quick thing. Massachusetts has officially become the first state to sue Equifax for their breach of data. So, yay
Massachusetts.
Yeah, Maura Healey.
I actually like Maura Healey. I don't know too much about her, but what I know about her, I kind of like.
She's pretty good, and she's a huge improvement on who we had before. If you remember, was Coakley, who...
Well, I didn't pay too much attention because I wasn't really, into it at that time.
No,
but I've been really following Healey, and...
This is just a fad for Kayla, so...
Well, I'm super young. I'm the youngest person in the room right now, guys. So take some time to grow up and get into it. But no, I've been paying really close attention to what everything
she's been doing,
and she's doing a lot of great things. So yeah, Massachusetts is officially the first state to sue them. So
hey, maybe she can be the first one to sue the SEC too.
She probably is working on it, honestly.
So now we have the next big hack, which seems to be, in our hack of the week special here. The SEC was hacked over a year ago, and they didn't tell anyone because, well, they didn't really think anything bad was going to happen from the hack.
Should we explain what the SEC actually is and why this is important?
So the SEC are a watchdog over basically Wall Street and anyone doing stock trading and companies doing their reporting, just all of that fun stuff that really, is super important. If you insider trade, they're coming for you. That's their job. And so when you're a company that has information related to, well, honestly, the value of your company, things that will majorly swing your value, we're changing this, we're acquiring that, we're splitting the stock, we're whatever, anything really important, you file with the SEC, and you file all these types of things in the system they have called Edgar.
And Poe?
No, it's Edgar.
Okay.
Yeah, different Edgar.
You don't know him.
No, Edgar suit.
Yes. And so anyway, so
bad reference.
with Edgar, they have all of this information, and it's usually information 99% of the time that isn't public yet. So if you knew this information from Edgar before the public, you could act on it by trading stocks. It's classic insider trading, and they were hacked over a year ago and didn't tell anyone. And they didn't actually make this public until they realized in August that...
August of this year. So over a year later.
They realized that someone was using the data to actually trade, that people were out there. And
so for a watchdog...
They're not clear on exactly what they know, but they believe that people were using the data from Edgar to insider trade to make illegal money. So for a watchdog
group, which it's part of their job to watch for insider trading.
And all the other stuff, but yeah.
took them a year to figure out that their hack was causing insider trading.
Yeah.
That's a great watchdog group, guys.
Well, that's what they've said.
To be fair, insider trading investigations could take a while. It might take a while for them to figure out who it was actually making the trades and how they were getting the information.
But I mean, if you know you're hacked, shouldn't you be watching the information?
Yes, yes, you should.
Like more closely.
Yeah, and I really want to talk about how the SEC released, this warning to the public too, because that's kind of one of the more bizarre pieces of this. They didn't have a press release. They didn't have, a meeting with the press or anything else. They put out this 8-page statement that's like 90% garbage, and it's super dry and super difficult to read. And buried in this is one paragraph that addresses, so we did have a cybersecurity issue, and there was a vulnerability.
So they did like a chaos sandwich where they
did.
So it's like they put a whole bunch of garbage, and then like in the middle of the garbage, by the way, your information was taken.
They absolutely buried the lead, and because of that, when they say things like, "Oh, I don't think anybody's personally identifiable information got out. Oh, it's fine, guys, don't worry about it." Like I can't believe that.
Also, I'd be a little dubious about the fact that, it took them a year to figure out that people were doing this. And now they're telling us, hey, no, don't worry. We didn't notice that for a year, but we totally figured out no one's personal information got out.
And what's kind of crazy, too, I don't even have any words anymore to describe what's going on in the world. But these hacks are getting more and more massive, and they're hacking. So everything's getting hacked every day. But
so everything was already getting hacked every day. We're just now finding out about it finally more often.
But we're also finding out about all the hacks a year after the hack. So it's like your information was stolen a year ago, and we're finding about it.
When the OPM hack happened, they were in the network for well over a year before they were even found, and then they brought in a bunch of outside help, and they thought they got rid of them. And a year later, another security researcher just said, "Would you guys like to see all your data still leaving the network? Because you didn't get China out of the network." And they're still in the network, even though another group of us reported again that data was leaving the network.
I mean, it's at this point, it's like, is this willful ignorance, or is this just people getting smarter, the hackers getting smarter?
The internet has never been secure. The internet is never going to be secure.
No, I get that, but when you have these giant companies that are supposed to be protecting their information, I would think that you would want to do everything in your power to protect the information, but it just seems like some of these companies don't give a shit.
Right. So there's a few pieces here to this. The first one being that we're getting to a point where finding people in your network is actually an easier thing to do now than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so the tools exist to identify this now. And they did in the past, but they were a lot more specialized, took a lot more work, a lot more proactive action. And so now that the tools are getting easier to use and coming down in price, more networks are getting them and then uncovering these hacks. These hacks were always happening, and for the most part, never getting caught because of it. What networks have been doing since the beginning of the internet is working on the border. And what that means is, what does your network expose to the internet? How does your internal network connect to the internet? Well, right there, we're going to put up a firewall and try and block all the bad guys from getting in. But if a bad guy is already on one of your internal computers, they had nothing stopping you from moving laterally. So once you're on this computer, you can get to 100 other computers because you're already in. Is how those networks used to work.
That's how I look at it. When these giant companies and they see these giant breaches, it's like, are they just being willfully ignorant by not paying close enough attention?
To some extent,
again, it was really hard to actually discover that stuff for a long time, and really expensive.
In the last 2 years, though, we've had a lot of hacks.
No, we haven't. We haven't had any more hacks than we were already having.
No, I'm not saying we're having more, but
they're finding them finally.
We've learned about a lot of hacks, especially within the last few years.
A lot of it is that while that technology existed and there were people that knew how to use it in those ways, the computer security culture didn't exist to prevent it or understand really even what was going on. So
not at scale anyways.
Right,
There were a few people that were great at it,
definitely.
but now we're getting a lot more people trained up to that level where they can identify this. And so we're finding more of it.
We're just discovering just how inept they were before, because they're just now getting good enough to realize how bad they were. And it will be another 20 years before they can even potentially have the computer tech staffs trained up to the point that they could deal with stuff like this routinely.
So to your point, Kayla, yeah, it is super irresponsible of these companies, but it's not irresponsible because oh, they don't care, blah, blah, blah. It's irresponsible because no matter how many times cybersecurity professionals told them the internet isn't safe, your data isn't safe, you're not doing things right, they were very complacent with our data, and they were like, no, we can handle it. We can protect these things. We're a big company.
That's where I fall.
In the case of Equifax, they specifically didn't seem to care because they didn't hire actual security professionals to do the security.
That's what I just don't understand. And the fact that we keep putting more and more information on the internet, it's but we know how easily
there's another
how vulnerable it is.
Factor as well. The companies, frankly, weren't willing to put in the funding needed to do it right because they didn't see a benefit to it.
Wasn't affecting their bottom line.
And these data breaches suck for them, but really it's just a write-off. I mean, some of the really big ones, sure, that's an actual problem, but they're really making
a lot of large ones actually have insurance for it now.
Yeah, there's insurance for insurance too.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day where we find out one of these giant companies get hacked into and then all of their bank accounts are wiped out and their stock is goes down to negative dollars.
Yeah, and then the FDIC replaces it.
Well, I know, but it's there's going to be a point where that a major company that will happen, and then it's going to be a huge bombshell for 15 minutes, and then the stock market will bounce back.
We're at a point now where for companies of this size, there are tools out there that are not complicated to use anymore that can solve some of this problem and help you identify these types of things faster. There's Carbon, there's Darktrace, and tools like this you can have running on your network. And I saw a really good demo of Darktrace. I loved what I saw there. It does this thing where it builds an idea of what every device it sees on your network does on average. So on average, this machine does more activity on the network during these hours. On average, it only accesses these file servers, and on average, it only runs these applications. And it starts to build over time a model of what normal is for that device, be it a phone connected to the Wi-Fi, someone's desktop computer, a laptop that someone brings in, whatever the device is that's normally on the network, it builds up what normal looks like. And then whenever it sees something abnormal happen with that device, once it's got a strong enough signal for what normal looks like, it alerts you. It'll say, this computer that is not once in the last 2 years ever connected to this file server, connected to it, and downloaded everything off of it over the last 2 hours. You might want to go look at that computer real quickly. And now that it's expensive. I mean, Darktrace is $175,000 to set up. But for an Experian, that's not a cost that
half
that
of these
is.
companies
they can
that
easily
have
afford
that. How the amount of information getting stolen. $175,000 is
nothing to
it's
stop
not even
this.
worth picking up off the floor.
No, it's costing them, way more than 10 times that just to solve, the extra problem. But the tools now exist, and tools like that, they use, machine learning, they use neural networks, all the stuff that is just now coming down in cost enough that there are more tools that exist that do this.
It's always going to boggle my head the amount of information we put on the internet, even though we know it's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I do it. I buy things online.
But we didn't put anything on Experian or Equifax
we have
or
no
TransUnion.
Control over that even.
Those people just took everything and put it up for us.
Because I thought it was going to be easier than
without
using
asking
paper.
permission.
Yeah. And I don't know. When it comes to the internet and data,
going forward, we're going to
always
find out about these things a lot faster as the tools to discover them become easier to use and come down in price. And hopefully that leads to more internal network security.
You would think, but then again, it's 2017. Shit is hitting the fan.
More realistically,
up is down, down is up. Nothing makes sense.
I just assume the corporations are going to up their investment and teams of hackers to breach each other's security and then use that to crash each other's stock prices.
Yeah, how many times do we have to read about 12-year-olds in other countries that easily get into servers? They can hire them. They're very easily available.
Well, they're hiring them now.
The best part was when I think it was SAP and Oracle were. There were two buildings in these competing companies. They were right next to each other. They almost
They were embroiled in bitter lawsuits.
they almost shared a parking lot, and they kept hacking each other from their parking lots.
Nonstop.
It's a real
Yeah.
thing that happened. It was
Yeah.
in the Boston area too. It was fucking hilarious. Like,
Of course they would.
But the thing I always tell companies when
original
I'm
hacker
talking to them
wars.
about their security is no matter how good your firewall is, that stops 99% of people if it's the best firewall in the world. If you have done the best you can do.
Antibacterial soap. It's always going to prevent 99% of bacteria.
But there's that one guy, even if he's state sponsored, there's still that one guy, and he's
He'll
getting
get
in.
and he'll give you the flu.
And so you need to also have the internal security, not just the external security. And most companies still don't have solid internal security, and we end up with stuff like this.
I mean, just a lot of the normal computer user practices that people just do on a daily basis and do on their business computers make it harder to secure these networks because your average user doesn't have computer security in mind.
Yeah, and if you have got open Wi-Fi too, like even worse.
if you're running
So
a
again-
business and you have open Wi-Fi, you've done something horrible.
Well, you're a cafe.
Well,
Well, of course,
You
but
have a
if that's
guest
connected
network,
to
you don't
anything
have
corporate,
your-
then you've done it wrong. That should be on a
I
separate
used to
network.
work for a company. I won't tell you who. It was Whole Foods. But we hated this one dude so much at one of the stores I worked at that we tried figuring out a way to shut off the customer Wi-Fi because we just wanted to spite him.
Nice.
I think corporate yelled at us when we were like, "Hey, how can we do that?"
So again, anyone out there working at a company big enough to afford it should be looking a lot more into internal network security. And I mean, highly recommend looking at things like Carbon and looking at Darktrace. They are awesome tools. Anyways, let's move on to Millions of Dead People, or
Yes.
better known as the Graham Cassidy bill.
Okay, I was gonna
Or-
say you're gonna have to specify. I'm looking at the notes here, and that could have been a couple of different topics. Yeah, Graham Cassidy, and I think the best joke I heard about this came from the podcast Love It or Leave It, and I forget who said it. It was a woman. I think she might have been from like the Daily Beast, honestly. But she said she goes because they couldn't figure out if it was Graham Cassidy or Cassidy Graham, and she was like, Cassidy Graham sounds like the worst American Doll ever, and it was I had to rewind it to listen to the joke again because it was so perfect. Because they and one of my favorite comics of all time, Guy Branum, was like on too. So they were just describing how terrible this American Doll was. And it brought so much joy. And that's all I can think about now is just the worst American Girl doll who wants to take away millions of people's of healthcare.
I mean, I would believe Barbie doing that too, though. I mean,
That
just
does
look at
sound
it.
plausible.
No, because Barbie's all her own woman now. She dumped Ken. She's got her own house.
Oh,
like,
new
she's,
Barbie.
Yeah,
Sure,
she's
sure,
doing
new
her
Barbie.
thing. Like,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
doing her thing.
Like,
look,
Barbie
even
classic?
old Barbie, like
Barbie classic, absolutely.
Hey, old Barbie, she was a veterinarian. She cared about people.
1950s Barbie didn't give a shit about you.
1950s was definitely the housewife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 80s Barbie.
No, no,
For
like,
90s,
yeah,
there were a
everything,
bunch of
yeah.
like business executive type ones too.
Yeah,
though.
but like 1950s Barbie with the blue eyeshadow and the zebra stripe bathing suit, she'd cut you if she had to. She didn't give a shit.
And so that all brings us right back to Graham Cassidy, because after
Yes.
getting cut, you're going to need some medical care.
All right, yeah.
And,
Speaking of cuts,
yeah, and speaking of cuts,
They are cutting everything.
so this
I'm
bill
Lindsey
is
Graham,
horrible.
and I don't give a
Yeah.
shit about you.
this is, and I'm surprised to be able to say this at this point. I think this might actually be the worst
No,
Republican
it's the worst.
Obama care
Oh yeah,
appeal.
no. Every healthcare professional and all the journalists that I think it was Sarah Klein on the Vox who's been covering healthcare since like the ACA started. She was like, "This is literally the worst bill
yeah, I
of
saw
the
that
bill."
one.
Yeah, like every
And yeah, no, I when I was looking through the provisions of the bill, that actually
Andy
seems
Slavitt-
accurate.
yeah, Andy Slavitt is like, "This is like the worst."
Everyone with
of the
an
worst.
actual stake in healthcare,
And everyone
the
who knows
organizations, the
all the ins
healthcare
and outs of
organizations,
healthcare.
the hospital networks, the insurance companies, literally everyone with a stake in healthcare has said this is bad.
Patients networks, the people, the organizations that want to treat various diseases, the hospital networks.
A group of
the
Republican governors
organizations-
have come together and said, "Don't do this to our
They did
states."
it was
Except
a-
for Dean Heller's Arizona, like fucking douchey,
It was a bipartisan
Has a-
letter from 10 governors,
including Louisiana.
five of which were Republicans, one of which was an independent. That means a majority of them weren't even Democrats.
And the Louisiana
Baker
governor
on that list?
Yeah, Baker was on the list.
Okay, good.
And no,
let's
but
see,
also the
so,
Louisiana governor.
Yeah, John
is-
Bell Edwards.
Cassidy is the senator from Louisiana.
To be
and
fair,
is
John Bell Edwards is a Democrat, though.
No, but Cassidy, who is the first, who's the
Yes.
writer of this bill, his own governor is like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, and also Louisiana's health secretary had some very
Yeah, she wrote
uncomplimentary
Yeah, she
things
sent
to
a letter.
say, very specifically saying
But
that this was a disaster for Louisiana.
And also, Chuck Grassley came out, was it last night or this
Chuck
morning?
Grassley had the best comments on this.
Yeah.
It was fucking unbelievable.
He says there's 10 different reasons why no one should vote for this, but we should.
Quote, I could maybe give you 10 reasons why this bill shouldn't be considered, but Republicans campaigned on this so often that you have a responsibility to carry out what you said in the campaign. That's pretty much as much of a reason as the substance of the bill.
So is
Literally,
Yeah.
there is no reason to vote for this, except for the fact that we promised everyone that we would do something kind of vaguely, maybe a little bit
like,
similar. So fuck it, we're doing it.
Yeah, so like Chuck Grassley is an awful person. So it's like, his words are like, we're going to do it because we said we'd do it. Instead of like what his words kind of could have meant was like, hey, I'm calling your bluff, guys.
Right.
Are you gonna do the worst thing possible?
The fact that this was Chuck Grassley saying, okay, admittedly, this bill is a shit fest, but I'm voting for it anyway. Like the point at which Chuck Grassley crossed the line from, I am 100% on board with this to, wow, this is shit, but I'm still okay with voting for it.
Yeah, 'cause
Like,
they don't
where
want-
is that bar? That bar is like somewhere around the core of the earth.
Well, so this bill
that
is
bar's
going to...
right around, let's strip everybody's actual guarantees for coverage and then hand whatever money is left over to the states and let the states decide state rights.
Yeah,
yay.
and we're going to
Yeah, but I mean,
basically
like, which-
eliminate Medicaid in the process.
I guess my problem is I don't understand where the transition line for him was, where he went, I was 100% okay with all the previous repeals. They were awful, but that was my flavor of awful.
Yeah.
And yet somehow he's like, no, this one is shit.
Is this like somebody who only likes the Ikes and Mike and Ikes? Like you don't get it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well, I mean, I could chopped it up to being like either Cassidy or Graham pissed off Chuck Grassley, or like Chuck Grassley doesn't like one of them or both of them, and that's probably the line.
To be fair, I don't think Chuck Grassley likes anybody.
But so this bill is awful, and I don't understand why it's around because
Oh, I know.
I mean, I understand
It's around because of spite.
Yeah, no, and I've had some of my moderate Republican coworkers be like, because I was just like, I don't understand why it's so god awful that people have health insurance. And I had one of my colleagues straight up say to me, goes, Obama, because that's the only reason why they want to get rid of it. And like, and he's like, he's not for it, but he's just like, he's basically being like, his hands are up, going, yeah, no, there's no logical reason other than Obama passed it.
And you can really tell because it does, like, for example, the ACA, of course, one of the big things they did was the expansion of Medicaid. Well, a bunch of the states decided that, once the courts said they didn't have to, they decided, well, we're not going to expand Medicaid. And what was their reason?
22 states originally.
Yeah, but their justification in many of those cases was that if they expanded Medicaid, then they would have to up their states' contributions as well because it requires matching from the states. And they weren't okay with the idea of having to be responsible for that in the state budget. And so that was their excuse for not expanding Medicaid. But then this bill converts the ACA Medicaid expansion funding and the individual subsidies to per capita block grants to the states. But then it also requires the states to start matching that. Admittedly, it only requires that for 7 years because after 7 years, because after that, those grants go away entirely, which just goes to show how awful this all is.
Well,
but the fact is, this proposes the very thing that the states that were refusing to expand Medicaid were complaining about with.
And then here's the other thing that that's been kind of like rattling my brain because they're using the talking point of like we're returning back to federalism, like how the founding fathers wanted. We're returning back to federalism. Mike Pence said it. Lindsey Graham has said it. Cassidy is saying it. First of all, there's a major flaw in this argument. Federalism was a bigger federal government. as the founding.
If you actually read the papers.
If you listen
versus
to
the anti-federalists.
Yeah, the Articles of Confederation versus the Federalist Papers. Like, that was the big argument of state rights versus a bigger central government. So, like, wait a minute. You want to go back to federalism, which means a bigger federal government, but you want a smaller federal government because you think you want federalism? Like,
so just to note, the reason that we implemented the Constitution instead of just keeping the Articles of Confederation was because they were a colossal shit show and produced a completely non-functional government, and everyone recognized it once they saw it.
Yeah, and then the other thing that it's like so frustrating with this thing. So when the ACA first rolled out, you had 22 states that refused to expand Medicaid, right? But then within the last 7 years, you had 3 states. I can't remember them I think it was Ohio, Alaska. I can't remember the third, but you basically put their tail between their legs and then expanded Medicaid, joined in on the fun of the ACA, and then we're like, oh, it's working. And now those states are now like saying, do not take away Medicaid. Kasich is saying it. Murkowski has voted no because of it. So, like, I just wish there was some real honest to God, like, journalisms and pundits and, like, Democrats that could be like, the reason why they're saying it's like Obamacare or ACA is in a death spiral is because 19 states refuse to expand Medicaid. They're ruining it for their people. And also, Medicaid pays for 50% of all births in America. All of them. 50% of all of them combined.
To be fair, there is one other major factor that's contributing to the supposed death spiral. That is the Republicans continually talking about how they're going to defund or repeal the expansion.
They have a current lawsuit going that's like been threatening the reimbursement payments.
Yeah, and all the
That's
insurance companies.
That's the only reason it's actually failing.
Yeah, the insurance companies literally make the decision going, we don't know if we're getting paid next year. We may have to pull out of these markets because we don't know if we're going to get the money that we're supposed to.
Yeah, and the insurance companies have come out and said it's your inconsistency and your tumultuous behavior, and you're telling us that we're not going to get paid. That is what's causing the uncertainty and the rising premiums. They've said that. They've come out and said that this year, saying the only reason why premiums are rising is because you're telling us we might not get paid.
Yeah, we've seen that mentioned like every year for the last like 6 years too now.
So they're saying that this is for the states. This is for states' rights and giving power back to the people in the states.
Which is funny.
This is going to cost the states $215 billion combined. Every state combined, their new cost because of this bill is $215 billion. How is that helping the states?
Oh, it's destroying state budgets. It's not. And also, like, they talked about making like some type of like funding pool with the BCRA, with the original Reconciliation Act, of funding it with $800 billion, and that wasn't even enough.
Oh, they've also said that this bill will create a $155 billion fund for use between 2018 and 2020 to reimburse insurers who have losses due to Obamacare.
Now, mind you, their last shitty bill had a kind of similar provision, but I believe it was only an $80 billion fund that time. So they've now doubled that.
So they want to give
show.
the insurers a lot more money. They want to take healthcare away from a lot of people, and better than that, they use all these weasel words like in it says the states have to provide adequate care for pre-existing conditions, but they do not define adequate.
And also, they have waivers. States can apply for waivers to
right, then they said the states can only get the waivers if they actually have if they show proof of essential healthcare coverage, but they do not define what essential healthcare coverage is in the bill. So.
It was defined in the ACA.
That
so
was
is it just
health
case by case?
Specifically?
Yeah. But and then the other thing too,
they're literally just letting the states get rid of everything.
Yeah, and then what me and Mac were talking about before the show is that so in the Graham-Cassidy bill, this will prohibit any state-sponsored affordable care plan to give abortion coverage.
Except in, medically necessary.
Yeah, they said in case of life and death of the mother, rape, or incest, which essentially means it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you literally can't get any sort of healthcare plan that's on the exchanges or anything if it offers any sort of elective abortion coverage.
Any type of abortion services, and that could be a wide range of things. We really shouldn't even. We need another word than abortion because it's like when people think abortion, they don't think they think it's like this this surgery where it's like no, half the time it's a pill you take. Like Plan B would consider
to prevent the fetus from implanting in the first place.
Plan B would be considered an abortion service, in their eyes. But Massachusetts is one of the states. But New York and California mandate. It's a state law that mandates that any employer, any of these Affordable Care Act plans must provide abortion services they pay through by state dollars, Medicaid. Massachusetts has a Supreme Court ruled that you have a constitutional right to get abortion services regardless of your financial stability. It's paid by Medicaid, through state dollars. It's not we looked it up.
Yeah. It doesn't violate the Hyde Amendment specifically because only the state's money ever goes to it.
Yeah, but because of that, we get reimbursed with federal dollars, and we make up for it.
Well, we don't get reimbursed for any of those services. We get reimbursed for other Medicaid.
Yeah, we make up for it by getting we get other things from the federal government. But so the deadline for employers to submit plans for 2018 is September 27th. The deadline for this bill to vote on is September 30th at midnight.
If it's going to go in through reconciliation.
Which it pretty much has to if they want to have any chance.
The House has already agreed that they would just pass it. So they could put this in at the 11th hour on September 30th, right? That means that basically New York and Massachusetts and New York and California, their plans would be illegal October 1st if this passes. Like
the plans that almost everyone I know are on.
Yes.
Yeah, like this is creating such a fuck world. Like, for lack of better words, for no.
Kayla, that was really bad. You need to get a.
They are just creating a fuck show. Like, for no reason.
Girl, you need a thesaurus. Like,
there's no more words. Like, you can't use words anymore because it doesn't describe them accurately.
So this act is bad. Everything about it is bad. It is literally intended to harm people. It will harm people. It will cause many deaths.
And
it will cause, by the end of it...
only senator besides the Democrats that have said that they will vote no is Rand Paul, which isn't a confirmed no because he said that last time and he voted yes all the way through.
Well, he allowed them to negotiate with him personally.
What I'm saying is, like, even with the three senators, McCain, Murkowski, and Collins, who were dead no's. McCain was a dead no the last second, but Murkowski and Collins were no's all throughout. Now we're waffling and saying, well, I gotta take a look at it. It's like, no, it's shit. You know it's shit. You're a human person. You know this will hurt millions of people. Like, don't be such a fucking party stooge and come out and have some goddamn ovaries and just say you're not gonna vote for it.
Yeah, and I mean, given how not just unpopular. Unpopular is an unfair word to use because it fails to encompass just how unlikable the Republican healthcare proposals have been so far. They are legendarily unpopular.
Like, the only support they have are from the Republican senators and Congress people, and not even all of them.
And even their own lobbyists are opposing it this time.
There's no reason why this should have happened. I don't understand why they would waste more time through a reconciliation process to pass this when their whole push is tax reform. They could have put a tax bill, shoved it right through.
Well, that one would have been very tough for them as well.
Well, I know, because nothing's worse. Like, the only thing worse than a Republican healthcare bill is a Republican tax bill.
Right, but also it would have been just as hard for them to actually get something that they could pass through reconciliation and actually pass.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, they could have tried to focus on taxes because we all know that, Paul Ryan's been jerking off to tax reform since he's been in college.
Is that why his eyes are so big?
That's why his arms are so big. He's always jacking himself, and Ted Cruz apparently is now. It's gross.
Okay.
But I mean, they needed 51 votes for reconciliation, and now they're wasting it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they were going to waste it no matter what.
Yeah, because they're all idiots.
So in the end, what is needed is everyone needs to call their congressperson.
Specifically Arizona, Alaska, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Maine.
And tell them not to vote for this. If you're on an iPhone, there is a new app that's really useful for this called Capital Call, CAPITOL. And when you load it up, it just uses your GPS, and the first screen you see is a picture, name, and phone number to your senators. And you can just click right on it. And if you want, you can click on the wonderful little tab that says Take Action. And on that, it literally lists all of the things you should be taking action on. One of them, demand a bipartisan fix for the ACA, not repeal. And when you click on it,
You're working on a bipartisan one.
It's got a script that you can read. And you don't even have to come up with your own words on this one. Come on, people. The other one is governors oppose the Graham-Cassidy ACA repeal. It also has a wonderful script that explains the exact problems that you need to be telling them you disagree with. And there you go. It's that simple. Just load up an app and click a button, and you're taking part. Please take part on this one.
This is super important because this shit show could actually pass.
Let's move on a little. Let's move on to Nambia. I've always wanted to visit Nambia.
Oh, you haven't?
Just like Wakanda and all the other African nations that don't exist.
Wait, where is that?
That's a good question.
Well, it's right in between Namibia and Gambia.
Can we pull up a map? Can I get like a map? Angie, where's our employees? Can I get?
It doesn't actually exist. So our wonderful president is talking to is talking to a group of African nations at the UN, and he is talking about the Ebola outbreak, and he is there just praising Nambia, this country, and he's saying it very clearly, Nambia,
twice,
and their health system and how it's self-sufficient and all these other wonderful things, and how they didn't have an outbreak, and of course there is no Nambia, and you can see on the faces of the various people in the audience,
the various foreign leaders,
from representatives
yes.
from all the real African nations, that they don't think it's funny.
No. Some of them do look like they're trying to figure out like what country he's actually talking about.
And it is actually clear that the country he's talking about is Namibia, which honestly, like,
it's close enough.
So where is that on a map?
In Africa.
Yeah, but like Africa's a big continent.
It is. Well, it's actually a
lot larger
small
than the map
continent,
protections actually show.
Yes.
Like you can fit
Mercator
America,
predictions
like all of the USA, kind of in the top left corner, and
but that
still
doesn't
have
tell me where in Africa this country is. Guys, I went to sped school. That's a true story.
You've got a tablet in front of you. You can pull it right up on the map. It's great.
I don't know what tablets do.
Is that also a thing they don't teach you in sped school? Come on.
No, because they didn't have them. So like 45 years ago.
45 years. She's not 45 years old.
You were just saying you're the youngest person in the room. You don't get to play that card now.
Look, she went to sped school, okay?
Okay, numbers are hard. Oh, I got a map here. It's like it's very
Southern.
Okay. Yeah, I can't find it. I don't know what words are.
Anyways, so everyone decided to go after Trump on this one. It was quite hilarious. And
my other favorite part from the speech though was when he thought he was going to get the biggest applause break ever for saying that not only has socialism been implemented, but it's been faithfully implemented. Pause for applause.
Everyone just sits there like
silence.
And
fuck is wrong with you?
You hear one person going,
Am I supposed to clap now?
Yeah, it's a very.
That was one of his aides, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That was Steve Miller being like, it's a great line I wrote. Yes, my forehead is working.
I can't believe that was him because it didn't sound squishy enough.
So that's
See,
our
every time I look at that
on
man,
the
like he looks like
country
he'd just be
of Nambia.
unpleasantly moist to the touch.
One thing I do want to point out that's kind of ironic about Trump saying all these wonderful things that were actually accurate about Namibia's healthcare system is that Namibia has a universal healthcare system where about 70% of total health expenditures are paid by the government, and the government-funded system covers about 85% of the
Wow,
population.
he's
that thing
making
that he's
real,
against.
Yeah, he's making
He was praising that thing he's against.
Real
No,
great,
like he did in Australia.
What a really smart man we have sitting in that office.
And well, not only that, he did threaten total annihilation of North Korea. So guys, I'm feeling safe.
Triple threat.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Wait,
not only did he insult 75% of the countries there by calling them by thinking socialism was a dirty word and forgetting that like our country is in itself has socialist programs. He told other countries that, don't worry, I will totally bomb the shit out of you if I want to. And congratulations, Nambia.
And then he broke into Rocket Man?
Yes. And then he started praising Elton John again. So,
which still is Rocket Man pro or against Kim Jong-un? I can't figure that one out yet.
I mean, it sounds like the sort of nickname he'd be all in favor of.
Yeah, like I think it's a pro nickname.
Yeah, it does seem kind of that way.
It seems like they're buddies now.
Like if I were threatening, like I'm gonna develop, nuclear weapons on ICBMs and launch them at people, and people started calling me Rocket Man, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm Rocket Man.
Yeah, like every time he says Rocket Man, I'm like, are you giving him like kind of like the nudge, like, hey, Rocket Man, I see what you're doing, keep it up. Like,
is he suddenly cool since he's like friends with Rodman now?
Okay, well,
no. See, look, I have a good one for this because if you stop thinking about Trump as a president, which
I don't think about him like that at all.
Because like I seriously want to vomit anytime I do. But like if you just think of him as a reality TV star, which is what he is. It's all about the ratings, and him and Kim Jong-un being all up in each other's faces is great for the ratings.
Yeah, this is like sweeps week. You do the unexpected thing.
So,
oh God,
if you look at it that way, it makes perfect sense.
What's going to happen during pilot season between the two of them now? Ooh, it's going to be rough. There's going to be some sitcoms out there.
Actually, it's going to be okay because him breaking up with Melania is going to be... for the
I bet she's got that contract. I can speak words, guys.
Yeah, they probably got a crazy prenup.
Oh no, she's got a contract where she has like the dates circled of when she's allowed to be released. Like I can tell, like it's always clenched in her fist. I can that's why she's always slapping his hand away because she's like, that's where my contract is.
All right, so out of a non-existent country and over to
a country that wants to kill us.
Russia. How about Russia?
How about Russia? Am I right, guys? Am I right, ladies? Who's with me?
How about not?
Paul Manafort. Look at this guy.
Oh, we've had some fun revelations there.
So he's getting indicted. He has been told, and
well, we don't know where he's getting indicted yet. I really hope it's from the state attorney general.
Well, he was told by Mueller's prosecutors, which sort of suggests probably federal.
We don't want federal because...
I mean, to be fair, what I would expect is, you charge him federally, he gets pardoned, and then the state charges come down, and he's already been pardoned. And then he can't do anything about the state charges because he's already accepted the pardon.
It is the correct way to handle that because then he's screwed.
Say that one more time.
Okay, you give the federal charges. He gets pardoned. Now they bring down the state charges. He's already accepted the pardon, which means he has legally admitted that he is guilty of that crime. He no longer has a defense against the state charges because he's already
do
admitted
anything for the state
crime.
charges.
So can you?
And a federal pardon.
Dismiss a pardon?
No, but
once you've accepted a pardon,
federal pardon.
Maybe can you reject? That's what I meant. Can you?
You can reject a pardon, but then
you can
just
totally say I don't accept it.
Then you go to jail for the original thing.
Yeah, you can reject a pardon saying I didn't do it, so I don't need a pardon.
Yes.
But if he accepts the federal pardon, which isn't anything to do with the state can still then come after him, and states are allowed to admit a federal pardon in as evidence of his guilt.
Has that happened before?
Yeah, the courts have specifically stated that legally speaking, accepting a pardon is the same as admitting guilt.
All right. Well, I don't spend a lot of time in federal courts.
It would be interesting seeing that exact series of events. Get the pardon on the federal level.
And it wouldn't be double jeopardy at all?
No, because it's a different district. It's not the same jurisdiction.
And you're not technically convicted, right?
Right.
No, you are convicted, but it's you can be tried for the same crime in different jurisdictions. You can't be tried twice for the same crime in one jurisdiction.
And the reason that usually doesn't
come
up...
It's blowing my mind right now because I haven't really thought of it that way.
So the reason that doesn't come up that often with double jeopardy is venue is, as you know, a very strong part of getting convicted. They've got to try you where they're supposed to try you.
Yeah.
So like if you did it in Texas and they try you in New Jersey, you can get off on venue. you can get, any conviction overturned on venue. But since it's federal and then it's the state that it happened in, venue is perfect.
Yeah, usually the federal and the state work together on the prosecution of these cases, and so the person only ends up getting charged by one. But there's nothing that actually prevents them from both.
We know that the New York Attorney General is working with Mueller because he announced it. But that's fascinating because
Yeah, you should read all that. It's kind of fun stuff.
Fun.
No, I mean, I'm
interesting.
I've kind of been reading it in real time, so I haven't really been focusing on a pardon defense. That's never really crossed my mind. But now I'm I gotta go Google this now.
So now they're looking at 11 years of Manafort's wonderful life as a Russian agent.
We found out that it turns out that for much of those 11 years, he was actually under surveillance for being suspected of doing various
they said
things that he did
they
in
said
the
during,
Ukraine.
Definitely did.
During the no-knock raid, they were taking photographs of his suits because they're saying
the suits will prove how much he's actually worth, how much money he's actually making, because there's a lot of value in those suits that he hasn't declared.
Yes,
how did you get all these suits that are tens of thousands of dollars?
Well, I believe it's those tens of millions of dollars he received from Oleg Deripaska and the 14 million that he received from the former president of Ukraine.
Yes, when he was trying to keep that guy in power during the revolution.
And speaking of Oleg Deripaska, less than 2 weeks before Trump accepted the nomination, it turns out Manafort reached out to an overseas intermediary to get in touch with Oleg Deripaska, offering him private briefings on the state of the campaign.
Which, okay, how much more proof that they tried to collude do we need? I know they keep saying there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
And
no, their intent was to collude.
Yeah, currently news stories are we don't know yet whether Oleg Deripaska ever received the message, whether the contact actually ever followed through. Who cares?
Manafort intended to collude.
Blatantly offered.
If someone
attempted
tells me,
murder is still a charge.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the murder.
If someone calls you up and says,
attempted collusion should definitely
if
be
you
a
want to buy
thing.
a kilo of cocaine, come here. And you never show, or you show up,
but
and
there's no cocaine.
No, there's no cocaine, and there's no one else there. You still try to buy it. Yeah. A crime. It blows my mind.
I mean,
that it's getting more and more ridiculous and more absurd and blatant with their attention to collude. They're intending to it. I'm not saying they succeeded. Because we don't know how much Russia.
We don't have enough information to say that.
We don't know how much Russia responded, right? But that doesn't really matter.
Oh.
They still have been reaching out saying it's they're sending texts hey Vlad, collude tonight, XOXO, and just because Vlad didn't respond back doesn't mean they didn't attempt.
The murder thing isn't really the best analogy because attempted murder, while it's still a felony, is a different charge than the various homicide charges. But criminal conspiracy, all you had to do was plan it and take any steps to carry it out. It didn't have to be...
on federal level, overt acts don't necessarily have to be proven.
No, they don't have to be overt acts, but you have to have done something in pursuit of the conspiracy itself.
No, conspiracy...
It doesn't have to be anything...
And reaching out to set up possible meetings... is definitely doing something.
Showing up to a meeting where there's Russians?
Bringing other members of the campaign to that meeting, definitely taking action.
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting
the
forwarded
most famous Russian other than Putin at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. Being a registered lobbyist for Russia?
Well, he did that later, so clearly it's fine, right?
I mean, I think the one thing that Veselnitskaya has really done for Americans is taught a lot of them how to pronounce Russian names.
Yes.
I stopped caring because I don't need to care about these people.
Oh, and speaking of
Veselnitskaya,
another thing we learned recently was Trump Jr.'s testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee a couple of weeks ago, where he openly acknowledged that he took the Veselnitskaya meeting for the purpose of obtaining damaging information. He literally admitted his actions as part of a criminal conspiracy.
But he keeps saying it like he's getting himself off the hook.
Like he says it
no big deal. I was just, colluding.
He's
Don't
just
worry
being
about
like,
it.
I don't understand the big deal, guys. I took a meeting. They said they were going to talk to me about Hillary. Why was I going to go to that meeting? I want to know about Hillary. She's our candidate, our opposing candidate. Obviously, I want to know bad things about her. What's the big deal? It's like,
the part where the thing that you did is super duper illegal for really good reasons.
Are the big deal. And he even went further saying that they had information about her health.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't just like, oh, this is like, what did they kept saying at opposition research? Like, no. Like, they're like, oh, we have very specific information about her medical health history. Do you want to come to this meeting and I can give you documents?
Well,
Absolutely.
to the extent they had information concerning the fitness, character, or qualifications of a presidential candidate, I believed I should at least hear them out.
I don't know. Besides the whole, like, I don't know, federal campaign laws. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
I mean, who wouldn't take a meeting with representatives of a foreign government in order
we
to
have
obtain...
con-
Did
that
he
we
even
have
know the
safe-
FEC existed before, like, he took this meeting?
I
I don't
don't know
think
if
he
he
did.
knows where F, E, and C in the alphabet are.
or on a keyboard, for that matter.
Well, one of the more interesting things to happen in the last couple weeks, I think, is Ty Cobb. Not the former famous baseball player there.
Which-
Oh, a distant relative.
But apparently, that's a person. I didn't know who that person was. That just goes to show like who I am as a
They
person.
literally give out
Kayla.
an award in Major League Baseball every year, the Ty Cobb Award.
Like I watched the baseball awards.
What rock have you been
baseball.
hiding under?
No, I know who the Ty Cobb is. Mustache Cobb. I didn't know how there was other Cobbs out there.
So, our new favorite superhero this week is Ken Vogel. His superpower is not being recognized while sitting right next to you.
I mean, to be fair,
Holding
it
an
didn't really
iPhone and
require
recording
a
you.
whole lot of superpowers because he was sitting next to Ty Cobb and some of his colleagues at a restaurant table where they were loudly discussing the Trump administration.
150 feet, like 150 steps from the New York Times Washington like office.
I have a real question about this one. Okay, these are two lawyers,
Career lawyers.
Yep.
career lawyers who are working for let's say a high profile client. In what way is publicly discussing details of their client not a violation of the attorney-client privilege?
Because they're both working for
Yeah,
him.
they can discuss.
So they can discuss.
Right, she's saying
They're
more the
just
fact
doing
that
it
they were
loudly
yelling
in
it so
public.
loudly that
That's
everyone
just
could
that
hear.
they're recklessly irresponsible about it.
Yeah, like technically.
That's a hard thing to prove right
well,
there.
no. So technically, because they're so public, this could be brought before I don't know
Bar association.
one
or
of bar associations, and
Th-
they.
this sounds like you could be able to be disbarred for this, right?
Possibly, it would be really tough on this.
This would be a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to prove like they gave up, like they like I don't know the exact words for what I'm trying to say, but you would have to like it would be like if they had like classified documents on the table and Ken Vogel was able to snap a full picture of it from where he was sitting. I mean, discussing a client and like it's not unknown who their client is. So
No.
it's a public information that like they represent Donald Trump for the Russia thing. So
Also,
like,
I don't know that they actually discussed anything that would technically constitute privileged information.
they specifically discussed how much documents they were willing to give Mueller. So like
Yeah, but they talked about how they were having an argument between Ty Cobb and Don McGahn about how much.
so like
But
there,
I
there
don't think
might
they
be
specified.
well, there might be an argument that Mueller could make.
It's possible.
But he would have to go before the court and say, "Hey, they're violating the rules of discovery," and like so. I mean, yeah, what they did is incredibly reckless
Oh, it was dumb as hell.
and borderline ethically inappropriate.
yeah.
Well, it's inappropriate, but borderline
Definitely.
Well, but like borderline ethically wrong. But it would have to go before the board, and someone would have to file. I think the only thing that was really that damaging was the fact that they were like, "There's a secret safe with a couple of pieces of paper in it that we're refusing to let Mueller see."
Well, no, he was saying, "Oh, Don McGahn has them in a safe, and I'd like to see them."
Yeah, like that might be that probably is the only thing as damaging.
And what do you
but-
think Mueller did when he heard that? Do you think
Like-
he started asking
no,
Don
he
McGahn,
filed a
"Hey,
motion-
can I have
he filed,
whatever that was?"
No, he filed a motion to compel immediately.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Now, you might
Thanks,
be
Ty Cobb.
you might be wondering, why would Ty Cobb do something this fucking stupid? Well, it
'cause that
turns out
mustache is doing all the work.
It turns
for
out
him.
he's the D team,
yeah,
not the
so
A team.
when Business Insider interviewed a partner at Hogan Lovells, his former firm, and with under the condition of anonymity, so they would speak their mind about him, they said that, quote, the words clown and buffoon were bandied about, end quote, among the firm's lawyers when they spoke about Cobb before he left for the White House. They said that, quote, he was supposed to be the DC insider who was going to help Trump get away from the Kasowitz mistake. And that he isn't a DC insider, he's the D team. And that, quote, most people were really glad to see him go, end quote.
All I can see it when I look at his face is like 2 googly eyes in the middle of his mustache. Because I just feel,
that.
I just think that his entire, I don't see a person, I just see his mustache. And I want to laugh, but at the same time, I'm like, you're a human person voluntarily walking around looking like that.
So you want to laugh?
And cry.
Okay, fair enough.
Because he's still a lawyer. And Trump just saw his face and was like, I like what I'm seeing. Hired.
This guy looks legitimate.
Yeah. He probably twirled his, the ends and was like, hey, I know some things. Wonky wonky. I don't know what vaudeville people sound like anymore. And then that's how he got hired. But yeah, you can't look like he does and be taken seriously.
Well, apparently you can, just not by anyone with any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and apparently Trump's lawyers all hate each other.
Oh yeah, they were Cobb was nonstop talking shit about the rest of the team.
Yeah, so the biggest takeaway from that not even that eavesdropping. They basically were it was a Broadway they were dress rehearsaling for their Broadway musical or something, and Ken Vogel was just like, what was that? Can you repeat what else I'm in? Oh, okay. What? And writing it down but
excuse me, could you speak a little louder into this microphone?
Can you spell that last name for me? McGann, one more time.
Now, just for the record, could you spell your name?
Yeah, right. Can you sign your name on the dotted line here? But yeah, the biggest takeaway was A, that safe exists, and B, Trump's lawyers hate each other, which I think delighted probably everyone that heard that story.
And surprised approximately no one.
Yes.
And of course them saying, this can't be legal that he listened in on all of that and reported on it.
In a public space.
Yeah,
which
not
is
even
totally legal.
Not even inside the restaurant. It was on a sidewalk. It was a makeshift sidewalk cafe where you're on a public sidewalk.
You literally cannot have less of an expectation of privacy than this.
And you're right next to the New York Times building. So where do you expect New York Times journalists to be eating? I mean, the funny and sad part about this whole Trump administration is that it's the most transparent and the most secretive at the same time.
It's the most transparent, but none of that's intentional.
Yeah.
It's transparent, but not in the government transparency way, in the transparent motives kind of way.
Yeah,
or transparent lies.
Yeah, it's transparent where it's I know what's going to get him. I'm going to tweet.
All right, so...
And then I'm going to contradict my tweet.
That's
now.
Ty Cobb for the week. I'm sure we will learn more.
I'm sure indictments will be coming down on him soon.
Moving on.
Let's talk
Anna's
local
got
politics.
some politics stuff we want to talk about here.
Politics happens on a local level?
It
Did you know that?
Surprisingly enough.
You know what's really surprising? Malden had city primaries on Tuesday.
A couple of cities did. Salem did. That's the only other city I can remember from the Boston Globe article. But yeah.
Yeah, so city primaries are a thing that happens. Every city has different rules about when they need to have primaries, or at least I think they do. I don't know. I know what happens in Malden because that's where I'm paying attention to the local politics. It's where I live. Basically, what we have here is if there's more than 3 people running for one seat, then they do a primary. And then in the general that happens, you have the 2 top contenders. It's totally party agnostic. They don't care, which is important in a super...
like a jungle primary type thing.
Yeah, it's really important in Massachusetts, which is a super blue state, that you don't have something where, the primary actually decides who takes the spot.
I think they do that for state, Senate.
They do that for most seats.
Yeah, but not
But city councilor and school.
Yeah, those they don't tend to get a lot of votes and contenders.
So Malden is electing the entire city councilor. Everybody's up this year, and the school committee. And there's a lot of people running. And
how many seats are?
So not every seat is contested, and
how many seats are up for votes? Can you remember offhand?
It's every ward, and I think we've got 8 wards, and then we've got the 3 at-large seats, and we've got 4 people running at large.
Every time people say at large, I'm like, is there a fugitive?
Let me explain. Okay, so in a city like Malden, we've got, the wards, which are basically just neighborhoods. And each one sends up one counselor to the city council there. We have 3 seats that cover the entire city. So, like one of the incumbents, Debbie DiMaria, if you have a problem, you can just call her. I literally now have her cell phone number in my phone. I called her because I had an issue with somebody who was volunteering for her campaign. And I didn't hold it against her, but I figured she should know, because if somebody's out there wearing your t-shirt spouting really offensive stuff, you would want to know that, right?
I mean, reasonable people would, yeah.
No, and she is a very reasonable person. So, but that's her job. There's 4 people running. There's 3 incumbents, Debbie DiMaria, David D'Arcangelo, and Craig Spatafora. And then the 4th is Steve Winslow.
Wait, from Family Matters?
Is not from Family Matters. My sister's actually, full disclosure, helping to run his campaign, but he is a sweet guy who's perfectly suited for city council, and I super hate David D'Arcangelo, so that made it really easy for me to support this guy. But since, there's 3 seats there and there's only 4 people running, they didn't have a primary, so that's going to be the general. Ward 3 had 3 people running for a school committee and 3 people running for the council seat. So I went out on Tuesday morning in the rain and held signs for 2 of the candidates that I thought were super progressive, both of whom lost the primary. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And nobody our age, and in general, a lot of people don't, just nobody knows when these city primaries happen. They know after the fact. They go, oh, I guess some folks got knocked out of the race that I guess I'm supposed to vote in November.
Yeah, the smaller city or town elections, the town specifics, city specifics, it's kind of hard. I remember one time my town had a local election, I think at the beginning of the summer, and I just saw a sandwich board driving home, and I was like, oh, what are we voting on? I mean, I went and voted, but I mean, there's not a lot of
It's really hard to form an opinion on your locals because they don't.
When you find out Monday that there's a vote Tuesday.
Exactly. And, we're lucky in Massachusetts at the state level, we get that packet that comes in that's about, hey, here's all the questions that are coming up with the explanation. Here's your incumbent and the people who are running against them. We get that because we're a decent state that does cool things like that, but you don't get it at the local level. The only reason I've been able to keep up with the Malden stuff this year, first off, is because my sister's cool and has been, trying to drag my ass into this. But also because we have groups like Our Revolution Malden, which just showed up, which is demanding that the candidates actually talk about some issues of substance. So I can say, oh, Jen Spatafora is running in, Ward 3, and she's got kids in the public school system, and she's kind of moderate, but she's up against Mega Smith, who has all these ties to the charter school thing, and being somebody, personally, I don't like charter schools. I don't like the whole system there. That makes it possible for me to make an educated decision. Before this year, I would go into the local elections completely blind.
Honestly, even if you do pay attention, I've often found that it can be very difficult to distinguish candidates on the local level. It's not uncommon to see 3 or 4 people running for school board in a town that all effectively have the same platform.
Also, sometimes you don't even know what you're voting them for. I mean, I think, I can't say for all, but I know in my town and where I work in Salem, historic commission's an elected commission. Well, a lot of people don't know what that means. Why am I voting for you to do what? I don't what is, so it's kind of hard.
And other positions some places there'll be a board of aldermen or
we
a
had
board
a
of
library
selectmen.
trustee that apparently was the only contested seat in my last election. I didn't really know what that meant. I was my library runs fine.
Even if you have a general sense of what some of the jobs are, a board of aldermen, you can have a pretty solid idea. That's basically your city council, but you don't necessarily know what the limits of their responsibility are, and that it can be almost impossible to find that out with going to city hall and looking through town records.
Yeah, physically talking to somebody.
And it is actually harder for us than it was for previous generations. It's not just, us being whiny millennials. You have the erosion of the local paper as a thing. Mm-hmm. The Malden Observer still exists, but it hasn't been doing a good job of keeping up with the candidates at all. And even though it does exist, a lot of folks aren't familiar with it. There's, the public access channel, which I'm sure none of the people listening watch your local public access.
I've tried. It's not easy.
That's where the candidates go. That's where they try to reach out to the public. So we have these versions of things. The League of Women Voters used to do a much better job of getting people information about the candidates that they were going to run for. And those types of groups have been eroded over the last couple of decades. So it isn't a fake thing that we're all...
It's not just laziness.
Yeah.
It's partially laziness, but it's definitely not entirely.
And it's also like for someone like me, like I live in the town that I grew up in, and like, yeah, I'm getting more involved with local politics, but at the same time, like, I don't know why library trustees are elected. It's, like, I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah,
I'll go vote, but I don't know why I'm voting.
Not every position is easy to make decisions like that for, but
so what we need is more groups like the Our Revolution that showed up here in Malden, who are pushing the local candidates to take stances on issues and then getting that information out to the people who are paying attention to them.
We also need it in schools. Like we need
better
civics education.
Yeah, like we need local civics
joke.
Education because
Absolutely.
it's like, not every local town runs the same way. You've got town, like, someone needs to be like, these are our town positions. And this is what this person essentially does.
Here's how our county government works. Here's how our state government works.
So there's two candidates that I super care about. Obviously, I'm upset for Jen and Julie, who I held signs for, and they didn't make it through the primary. But there's two that I care about who are going through to the general in Malden, which most of our listeners, you aren't Malden voters. This isn't super important to you. But they're two archetypes of people that exist in your local political scene. If you look, you will find these types of people. One of them is Nicole Mosalam. She came on our show a while back. She's amazing. And she is the kind of person where she starts talking and you're like, yes, wherever you are going, I want to help you get there.
I'm writing donation checks in the middle of her sentences. I'm like, I don't know.
I will follow you to the gates of hell.
I'm like, just tell me who to make it out to. I don't understand. Take all my money. Go with it.
And there are people in every city across this country, amazing progressive people who are just waking up to the idea that, we need heroes and they might actually be suited for the job. And those people need to get these local positions so they can move forward through the ranks. They need the support so they can get the experience so they can end up where they need to be in 2 years, in 4 years, in 6 years.
That is a necessary process.
And
it really is. You need to learn these things. Look at the non-politician president we have.
Absolutely.
Flunking pretty much everything. And here locally in Massachusetts, we also have the highest ranking elected official that is Muslim as a city councilor. And he is making the move to running for Congress, we believe. He hasn't...
Wait, like Congress or state?
State Congress.
Okay.
He wants to replace... Nadeem Mazin wants to replace Tsongas in Ward 3 because Tsongas isn't running
Congress.
again.
House of Representatives.
Yeah. Congress. Replacing Tsongas in Ward 3.
Not Ward, District.
District 3, whatever. Yeah, Ward is
There's a lot
the
of
local.
confusing things
But yes,
there.
he's so he's going to make that jump. Coordination is starting. Phone calls are starting.
Oh, that's exciting because there wasn't I didn't have a lot of faith when I looked up her voting district and then when I saw that she was like leaving, I was like, this is like some
look at those borders. I'm not sure how I feel
the first
about
thing
that.
I asked him
there's
was,
some Trump voters here.
well, the first thing I asked Nadeem was, you're not from there. You live in Cambridge. He lives very close to Boston, and this is kind of the middle of the state. And he's like, yeah, but I'm actually from there, and that's where my family is. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to run. And I'm like, this is amazing. What can I do? And
we should get him on the show.
He went through a very interesting process of, honestly, kind of starting out at Occupy. He was there with me helping run the media tent here at Boston. And he went from there to getting even more politically active and running for city councilor and then helping others who were running for state senate and state representatives. And now after a couple terms there in Cambridge is starting to make that next move up. And it's quite amazing to watch the trajectory, but also I don't think he would be fit for running for Congress without all that experience he's gotten over the last few years at the local levels. That really
people need some type of experience before jumping into an office.
I think he's a great guy. I just think you need that experience, and he's got it, and this is great.
Process and what the responsibilities and like what powers you
he's
have.
He's put in the effort and the
works.
time to get to where he is, to be a guy who I'm looking at saying, please, I hope you win. What can I do to help?
Of course, another thing that's important that needs to be remembered when you're talking about people running for like federal offices, those people, it's not like it's just that one person. That person has a staff supporting them who has to like read the bills for them and present notes and like meet with people and present that information to the representative or senator or whatever. They need that support staff. No one person can do all that themselves. It's impossible. And if you don't have the connections to be able to meet the people that you need to do those jobs that have that expertise and that experience, then you're not going to be able to be an effective representative or senator.
So no one wants to work for you.
Right. So you have to not only have the experience to understand the process and all that, but just to meet the connections to have the resources you need to do the job effectively.
Yeah, and like there's a couple of contested House of Representatives seats. I know there's one woman I got into a little Twitter tiff. I think she's challenging Steve Lynch. Is it Stephen Lynch, right? I know, and
not the comedian musician.
No. And she, I forget her name, but it was a very like noob central where she thinks that like she's got great ideas, so she could just easily take a seat. And it's like, okay, first of all, know your district. It's like Stephen Lynch's district is heavily unionized. He's got 100% of the union support. Where's your union talk? Like, her website had nothing to do with unions. I think she has a tech background. Like, I think she even bragged. She's like, I started my first startup with only $500,000. It's like, that's going to be great in Quincy.
Yeah. Also, you know, like, okay, why are you running against him specifically? I understand it's your local district, but like, why replace him? Is it, what are your objections?
With his issues?
With his if you think you have great ideas, you should be seeking to replace someone with crappy ideas.
Or someone who's resigning from office. Right.
Yeah, which is what Nadeem is doing.
Yeah, no, but that's exciting to hear because there wasn't a lot of... I got nervous when she announced her resignation, not because I care about her or like her politics. It's just she's a Democratic House seat. And
you look at those district borders
and I looked at the district and I was like, hey, maybe not, like now is not a great time for Democrats to just be jumping ship without a strong like replacement set up.
So it's been great watching Nadeem, go from this guy at Occupy who obviously, had his shit together and was going somewhere, but, actually watching him get there. But there is another type of candidate who runs at the local level. And we've got one of them here in Malden, Steve Winslow. I think I mentioned a little earlier. Steve Winslow is not a man I'm going to follow to the gates of hell. This is not a man who's going to pose dramatically on the barricades. He is not going to save us all from ourselves. He's not. There's some people you meet, they have that thing. Cole has that thing. Nadeem has that thing. Tito Jackson actually has that thing. Like, we have politicians with that. But Steve Winslow is a dork, and he really cares about sidewalks. And he cares about this intersection that pedestrians can't get through, and he cares about bike lanes and affordable housing and keeping the character of neighborhoods while making sure that we have a beautiful city that we all want to live in and we all respect one another and engaging more people in the political process.
It's something
and that's all he fucking cares about.
But it's something so simple and so adorable, but also makes a lot of sense.
I know, but he's perfectly suited for the job. There are people who would crash and burn if they tried to be politicians at the state level who are perfectly suited to run cities. And these people get knocked out by just garbage cans from the right because the right works really hard to get their people through this pipeline. So we need to save our liberal darlings and get them through, obviously. But sometimes there's somebody who comes along and is just the right person for the job and isn't going to go anywhere and is just going to stay where they fit and
sometimes
not get promoted.
They might be a little icy at interviews.
Maybe. But like sometimes it's okay to promote somebody just to the point of their competence and never push them further and just have them be good. for your city so you can have a place where you don't have fucking lead pipes everywhere, where, you don't have to complain all the time about the roads buckling because they didn't do a good job paving them in the first place.
And it's super important to note that, like, if you look, these things that are super important on the local level like that are really small things. It's not like they're trying to fix the huge problems facing our country. They don't need that grand vision. They just need to be able to recognize, hey, this is a problem in my local community. We really need this to be addressed. We can fix this. It's making some sidewalks. And like get super focused on addressing that one. It doesn't have to be yeah, it's a very different from what's needed on the national level.
It is. And a lot of local politics, you end up with these people who are just married to whatever petty power level they got to, and they don't actually want to make any progress. They don't actually want to do anything except throw, in the words of one of our friends from the Malden Democratic Committee, bad parties for old people. They're people for whom local politics is their social hour, and those people need to be gone.
Yes.
I don't want to see anybody in politics at any level who isn't totally 100% dedicated to the seat they're in, or who is totally fucking dedicated to the revolution. Everybody else needs to get out of our way.
There you go. What we need is more people running at the local level, more people understanding the local level.
And getting out of our way if you ain't going to be part of the revolution.
Yeah. Resist.
I got my sickle and hammer.
I would say check out Our Revolution. I would say check out any local organizations like your local Democratic Committee. Honestly, in your area, your local Republican Committee. I don't care. Get involved.
Find your city committee on Facebook. Find their website. Find wherever they are. They are posting stuff, but nobody can find them because they're super bad at social. They always are. Find them. These people put their home phone numbers, their cell phone numbers out there, and they want you to call, but they're really bad at finding you. So take the time, do whatever, Google and
show up at their office too. Like here,
most of these people don't have physical offices you can show up to. You literally have to find their phone number.
Oh,
and call them.
the state. If
there's the state representative.
Your state website. Yeah, you can always go there and they can help you out.
I'm not even talking about state reps. Find your ward committee person, because you probably have one, and you probably don't even know their name.
There you go. Get to work on the local level. All right, so that is episode 26 for the evening here. Thanks for listening all the way through.
I'm gonna go find Nambi on the map now.
Nambia? Yeah.
That's the name of the show, guys.
Yes.
Thank you, Kayla. Always keeping it light.
There you go. So, check us out on all the socials, all the other stuff they're going to talk about here afterward, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Eric Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Geoffroy, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie Locicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.